Welcome to the wonderful world of dance, bringing you exclusive interviews with top dancers and choreographers and reviews of the world's best companies across the globe. You can find lots more on our website at thewonderfulworldofdance.com.
Hi, this is Savannah Saunders from The Wonderful World of Dance, and today I'm so excited to be speaking with choreographer and dancer Ben Wright, who previously danced the lead in the famous Matthew Bourne's male Swan Lake. I have to mention that because I'm a huge fan of the work. But also he's here today to talk to us about his own company and the new show that he is taking across the UK, currently on tour, called Points of Echo, which is going to be on tour until at least the 19th of March. So let's welcome Ben. Thanks so much for joining us.
Hi, Savannah. Nice to be here.
So I hear you're down in Cornwall at the moment.
Yes, we are actually in Calstock, which is about 25 minutes drive from Plymouth, and it's actually my partner's father's village. So,
that's so nice.
Having some really great home cooked meals as well, which is really
wonderful,
really
particularly in these cold, frosty English afternoons, as it is here at the moment. So before we talk about your company, let's start first of all just talking a little bit about your own dance career, because as I mentioned, you have danced that incredible role as the prince in Matthew Bourne's Swan Lake. You've danced with so many companies, the London Contemporary Dansteater, the Richard Alston Dance Company, many more. Tell us about your dance career and some of your highlights.
It's kind of interesting because I've realised now that I've been not dancing as dancing as a performer for as long as I was dancing for a performer. So I'm at that sort of interesting kind of cusp at the moment. I mean, what's to say? I had a pretty random route into it. When I was 19, I was auditioning for drama school. Actually, I didn't want to be a dancer at all. And through a series of events, I ended up joining this youth dance company in Derbyshire at the end of the 80s. That's old now. And I met two individuals that really shifted the trajectory of my life. One of them was a former ballet dancer from Rambert. Her name is Yves Laveau. And she's the mother of the 4 children, but one of her children is David Laveau, the theatre director, actually. And she saw me in this kind of, I guess you could call it a community ballet class, the first time I'd ever done anything. And afterwards we had a conversation and she basically offered to teach me for free. Wow. So I sort of quit everything that I thought I was going to do, and I spent a year in a ballet school in Derby with, preteens and little girls dancing around. Wow. And in a true kind of Billy Elliot fashion. Spent a year with her, and then after a year, I got in at the ballet, what was then the Ballet Rambert School in St Margaret's. So that was a kind of a bit of a launching pad, spectacularly. And then the other person was Lloyd Newson, who was he'd just begun to get some sort of notoriety about his own company, Deviate, physical theatre. Yeah. And I think those two individuals at that point really, they just shifted my entire perspective about everything of what I thought I was going to do. And that's quite amazing, isn't it, to meet people who completely change your life. And did you not study dance really until you were 19? Did you really come to it quite so late? Absolutely not. I did nothing. I was unbelievable. One of those kids who was, I can say it, sort of quite badly bullied at school for not being particularly adept at sport, let's say. Yeah. And I remember at the time this being sort of a real revelation that I was able to be physical and physically expressive, and I'd never even considered it. So I kept my kind of acting passion. I was really into theatre, but I sort of had to drop it. If I was going to be a dancer, I had to just sort of stop that and just train, and that's what I focused on doing. And then it was kind of miraculous at the end of the beginning of my 3rd year at Rambert. I actually did an audition for Sir Matthew, now I should say, Sir Matthew. And he he gave me a role in Adventures in Motion Pictures, which was in 1991 actually, and I left training, so I actually only did 2 years worth of training.
Yes. Got
a job with him, and after about 7 or 8 months I'd auditioned for London Contemporary Dansteater and got in there, and then it just kind of moved on from there. I didn't go back to work with Matt until 2005. Is that right? 2005? Is that when we did it?
Sounds about right.
Swan.
I remember seeing it in London in about 2005.
No, absolutely right. It's 1995. 1995 is when we did the original Swan Lake at the old Sadler's Wells before it was actually knocked down and rebuilt. That's quite a long time ago. But in the course of that, I did the role on and off, unbelievably, for about 8 years, and kind of created the role with Scott Ambler. So it's myself, David Hughes, who was playing the Swan with Adam Cooper. So we had this kind of dual cast, and we did a couple of national tours. It ended up going to Los Angeles, which was astonishing, and then we did the incredible season on Broadway in 1998, I think. Yeah, into 1999. And the last time I actually performed the role, there were gaps. There were obviously gaps in between, but I ended up doing it in Japan and Korea. That was the last time I did it was in Seoul, and I'm actually going there in 3 weeks' time with Kanduko, with my new job as one of their associate artistic co-director. That's our term, artistic co-director. That's
quite the title.
Yeah.
It's an incredible career that you've had, and what an incredible and inspiring story to hear. Really, I think it's quite an important story as well in terms of being quite open about the bullying that you experienced at school, and then finding an environment where physically and possibly emotionally you felt really safe and can express yourself in the dance world.
Yeah, it was. I mean, it was a kind of. It sounds a little bit dramatic, but I think it was a bit of a lifesaver actually at the time. And in terms of the kind of generosity and altruism that Eve showed me, it's unprecedented, and so it is one of the reasons why I've firmly committed to, one might have a performing practice or a choreographic practice or directing, but for me, teaching is also an absolutely enormous part of what I do and who I am. So I'm also very committed and passionate about working with young people. It's a very different environment that we live in now, definitely in terms of the arts funding system. But I still believe that this is it's a life-changing force, dancing, I think.
Couldn't agree more. Absolutely. And after this extensive career you've had, and I still am reeling from the fact that you didn't start dancing until 19, which is just almost, as you say, unprecedented in itself. In fact, that shares a few parallels with Matthew Bourne himself as well, coming to his career so late. That's interesting. But what inspired you, as you say, been dancing for almost as long as you've now been creating work, what inspired you in the beginning to start creating your own work?
It's a weird thing. I've always sort of done it. I always did it. I remember my first year at Romberg, it seemed a natural thing that, as well as learning how to better one's technique, open one's curiosity, etc., that it seemed a natural thing to also want to take creative decisions or explore that. And I guess I'd done sort of stage design and graphic design and art when I was at school. So sort of having that making gene, if you like, has always been present in my life. And but I don't think I really took it. I didn't take it seriously, but I'm nervous about using the word serious because I feel like sometimes it's better to be playful with
explorative.
Was in 2008 when I decided to kind of build my own home, if you like, which was this project company, bgroup. That said, I think it was 2005 when I actually did my first opera as a choreographer as well. And I'd been kind of trying to work out how I could diversify a little bit more in terms of my income streams, let's say. And because I had this interest in theatre and sort of cross art kind of collaboration, it seemed natural that I would try and extend myself into other mediums. So again, I was just incredibly lucky. I met this amazing man, Stuart Lang, who's director designer, and he came to see this piece that I'd actually done at the Young Vic, called Tobias and the Angel, where I'd been working with a lot of community participants. And it's an amazing one-act opera by Jonathan Dove that we performed at the Young Vic and in churches up and down the country. And from that, he gave me the invitation to come and choreograph Faust by Gounod for Malmo Opera. And it's one of those beautiful, I can go, okay, that's where the seed lay. And my entire relationship with Malmo Opera, with Skånes Dansteater, all came out from that initial job. So, I ended up being the associate artistic director, and I've created some of my biggest and most game-changing work over there, actually. So there are these lovely cycles and runs of experience that come when you you put a seed in fertile ground.
Yeah, and again, your life taken in a direction that you possibly had never really considered before.
No.
And you, as you say, you create work, within the dance world, theatre and opera. Do you find one more fulfilling, and if so, why? Or challenging?
No, I don't. I think I'm always going to be somebody that's interested in the collision of art forms. It's sort of in my blood, and I'm beginning to not be ashamed of the fact that I just really like putting on a show.
Definitely nothing to be ashamed of in that.
No. And I have an explorative practice, but I have ideas for things that I kind of I'd like to see. So I would say I'd give this a plug right now that probably the biggest game-changing piece I've done in the last few years was The Feeling of Going, which was a commission that Åsa Söderberg, who's the artistic director and CEO of Skånes Dansteater, offered me. And basically, she gave me the Opera House at Malmo with a full symphony orchestra and the chorus, and said, "What would you like to do?" So we premiered the first version of the project in the end of 2013. And what it was a staging of Jonsi, who's the lead singer of Sigur Rós, the Icelandic band. He did an album called Go, which was about 8 years ago now. Anyway, he gave me permission to stage it as a piece of theatre, and we've just filmed it for television. And I've actually just I've just watched it for the first time. So we did it in 2013, we redid it in 2015, and then we finally did the final run of it in the end of 2017. And it's being broadcast all over Scandinavian television. We're trying to work out how to get it here to the UK, but it is for me, it feels like some clearer identification, if you like, in terms of what I think my voice is. And it is a total collision of singing, dancing and theatre. It has a large, I would say quite a-linear narrative in it. I think I am interested in narrative. And I'm just really hoping that
it sounds amazing. I really do hope that you find a way of being able to bring that over to the UK.
It was filmed by 3 Minutes West, who just did Betrothenheid, which was Crystal Pite's piece that was just at Sadler's Well.
Yeah.
Same film company. So it's a pretty, it's an amazing thing that's happened. So I feel like I'm just on the edge of that as well, just waiting to see. It's just about to, I'm going to Sweden on Monday to actually see the informal preview of it in a cinema. So that's great.
Amazing. Yeah, well, it sounds quite almost like a difficult piece almost. It sounds incredible, but working with a live orchestra and working in theatre and being able to bring all those pieces together. It sort of brings me to how you've badged your own company, B Group, as a movement company, not a dance company. It's sort of how I read about it. And you talk about this being, quite indicative of your work, but how would you describe your movement language or that movement style?
Honestly, I don't know if I have people have told me that I have a very liquid way of moving. That's something that somebody else said about me. I think each piece that I make has its own identity, its own set of questions, its own context. So I'm not really interested in having a style per se. It has to be, for me, it's about the people that are in the room, the creative team that I've gathered, the initial idea, and then getting everybody on board on a shared ambition. So collaboration is really, really key for me. And work, and you can go in with expectations, but usually I enjoy the mercuriality of that and the alchemy of getting a group of people together and saying, I've had this idea, it's something like this, what did we think? And we start to kind of build it. So there's a devising engine, I think, in the heart of most things I do. I don't even want to stick necessarily to be somebody that makes work in a particular size of space. I mean, Point of Echoes is I suppose quite an experimental piece in a way. I wanted to, having just done The Feeling of Going at Malmö Opera, which is apparently one of the biggest stages in Northern Europe. It's just huge, with a 19-meter revolving stage on it. I mean, it's just vast. But Point of Echoes is being performed on a 4.5-meter circular stage in village halls, and I really enjoy the idea of bringing a sort of a level of the operatic, and I mean that in a sense of how all art forms collide into proximate small spaces. And I think B Group haven't actually done anything since 2014, and because I went to Sweden for 4 years to work as associate artistic director. So it's really nice to come back and find a new way of engaging with audiences at this level. This piece, the Point of Echoes, if I'm rambling, shut me up.
No, it's absolutely interesting. Yes, please.
It was a collaboration with myself, foundationally between myself and Stuart Warwick, who is a writer and singer-songwriter from Brighton. We'd had this idea of just doing something together, and we were responding to a commission invitation from the Rural Touring Dance Initiative. I'm also working with a sound designer, Alan Stones, who I've worked with for 20 years, and Will Holt, who is a set designer. There's a really great blog that he's just written, actually, about how he designed for village halls. And then Lucy Handsome is a female lighting designer from the place that I'm building a new relationship with. But so it's about bringing lots of voices into the room, working out how we speak as one voice, if you like. And that's the same irrespective of whether it is Karlstad Village Hall or it is Malmö Opera or is the other larger spaces that we've inhabited. So
you mentioned there that this piece will be performed on a 4.5-meter round revolving stage, rather.
It's not revolving, it's static, but it's
static. Okay, good. Okay. I thought that was quite intriguing. So a static stage, and what can audiences expect from that experience of being in that location and in that proximity?
The initiative with around the commission, my understanding, was to bring more dance into rural locations, potentially to meet audiences that don't necessarily have a wide experience of seeing dance. And so I tried to pitch this quite carefully, that I wanted to play around with story. I also wanted to play around with text. And so this is it really is a melting pot, a bit of a crucible of mediums. It's even got a big surround sound around it, so it actually feels like you're in a radio play as well. So
wow.
So fundamentally, it's a story, and I've tried to twist the way that story is told. And the environment, although it's a static, sort of circular, lighthouse-esque thing in the middle of the room, we've tried to kind of ingeniously find a way of kind of shifting the space. So it's this very kind of fluid. It's a little bit, when I look at it sometimes now, it feels a little bit like an episode, like a kinetic episode of Roald Dahl's Tales of the Unexpected or something.
Good, fantastic.
It's quite spooky, and and fundamentally at its heart, it is a play, but it's actually being performed by 3 movement-based artists. So there's an experiment to it, as well as hopefully it being something of entertainment for people up and down the country.
And it's on tour at the moment. What sort of feedback have you had from the audiences and the rural communities where you're taking dance, which I think is a fantastic initiative, and the more we can do to expose dance and share dance, I think is wonderful.
For me, I should also say, like, strategically, if I can say that, I am really, really into this whole village hall scenario. There's something so beautiful about being invited into someone else's space, because they choose the show that they want to visit their community. And I mean, it's made me really think about where I want to position B Group, actually. Like, is this our niche? Is this where we actually kind of want to make work? Audience reaction so far has been, I think some people come, when you say contemporary dance, some people just don't come.
Yes.
They're already
they don't quite know what that means. It's like a barrier.
It's so nebulous. What the hell is that? And of course, it can be anything. I mean, contemporary dance, what is that? It's about movement-based work that's being made now, and
it needs a new hashtag.
Yeah. And so I think people have been surprised, a little bit creeped out sometimes in a good way. Fundamental to it, as I've said, is it really is a story. We wanted to tell a story, and so that's kind of what people are engaging with. But it's I think I've been really happy by the response. I really have. We've done 3. We did a pilot tour towards the end of last year, before I went back to Sweden to make The Feeling of Going, and then this is our spring tour. And then inevitably, while I'm on the road with them, when I can be on the road, I'm tweaking it and examining it. It's never a fixed thing for me. It's something that's kind of living. And
it's fluidity again.
Yeah. We as a group as well. I've left them for the last 4 shows. They've been on their own. It's been so nice yesterday coming back and actually seeing how the work has just sort of dropped into their bodies in a much more kind of cellular way. They're a superb. There are only 3 of them on stage, and they're an amazing team. That for me, that's a real important, crucial ingredient, that you get the right team.
Absolutely. And what do you look for in artists to join your company and to work with you?
I guess it also depends on the context of what the job is. But in terms of B Group, I'm really interested in people that are expansive in their thinking, that are generous communicators, that are happy to potentially move a little bit out of their comfort zone. People that have a sense of humour. Oh my God, that just cannot be underlined too much.
It's interesting because you think, you want someone, technically brilliant. No, just someone who's really quite entertaining would be great. Yeah,
that is not my. I mean, yes, they need to be able to move. Yes, they need to have a mental relationship to gravity. Yes, they need to be able to express themselves vocally. Definitely for this job, but it is also for me. It's like I'm not interested in one sort of spectacular pyrotechnic sort of ability. It's like, for me, it's about the person, and I enjoy being having my expectations about somebody really challenged or surprised or altered.
Yeah, that's great.
It's I think we're having a really great a long conversation. It needs to be people that are committed to a long conversation about what the work is and how we might do it better or more optimally. And is there a longer conversation when you draw a comma next to a show? Because I also feel like it's a longer line of inquiry rather than like we do a show, that's the end. It's actually about how do we make work? How do we engage audiences? How do we tell stories? How do we get people having a physical experience even though they're sitting down in a seat? I don't know. There's lots of questions.
Yeah, absolutely. And just going back to your point about working with great people, I mean, your artistic directorship role and also your co-artistic directorship of Kandoko, and you've got B group, so you've got these three really interesting recent experiences and your experiences now. Such a larger company, your own company, and quite a medium-sized company. How's your experience been moving from between those three roles and those three companies?
Well, my time is going to get more and more focused with Kandoko at the moment. I have one more commission at Skånes Dansteater, which we premiere in October this year. And interestingly, it's a big inclusive piece with asylum seekers, disabled individuals, and 8 members of the dance company. And again, it's on at the opera. It's with a huge symphony orchestra. We're doing La Valse by Ravel, which is going to be amazing. So that's one thing I'm doing. I know that I'm heading up for. B Group, once we have a tour at the end of this year, which includes, in the autumn, which is the culminating bit probably of this project, we'll be at the Place Theatre, and I think it's 3 or 4 weeks of touring around that. That's all being kind of finalised at the moment. But Kandoko is an entirely new trajectory, if you like. I actually said to a friend the other day that I remember when I first stepped foot in a ballet class, and you have the passion and the curiosity to work out how to do it, but it's also like my vision for the thing is beyond my capabilities yet. That's what it felt like when I'm in a ballet class, and there's a resonance with that at the moment where I've not run a large scale NPO company before. I'm doing it with one of my closest best friends, Charlotte Derbyshire. We've known each other since we danced in Ricochet in 2003 or 4. I think I've known her since then. No, actually more. My God, I think it's actually 2001. Oh God, I'm so old.
Time flies when you're having fun.
But it's a very different kind of role. I mean, we are, running a company that's been in existence for 25 years.
Yeah. Great reputation.
One that has inclusivity so embedded in its heart and its DNA.
Yeah, so vital.
Yeah, and I think we're really thinking about difference at the moment. We're only 5 weeks into the job, sharing the job, so it's really, really new. And I guess one of the things we're really understanding is that the identity of Kandoko, that masters is probably not the right word, but there's a dichotomy of influence. Let's put it that way. That you have the politics around disability, and then you also have the nature of what dance is as an art form. Yes. And those two are very voluminous and rich areas of inquiry and activism actually. So the responsibility to ensure that we are upholding and enriching the legacy the inheritance that we already have at them, but yet also thinking how would we subtly begin to move this into an expanded sense, if you like. I think there's been a moment where the company has really in the past shifted perception of ability, and I think one of the things that Charlotte and myself are ruminating on at the moment is how do we also sort of shift our perception of inclusivity. I won't say much more about it than that, but we're in a very rich creative conversation, the two of us, and the company are phenomenal, I should say. We're at Sadler's Wells in 2 weeks. We're there on the 9th and 10th. There are tickets still available.
Get those at sadlerswells.com. There's a plug for you.
And we've got an amazing programme of work by Yasmin Godda, which will be the London premiere of her Face In, which is the most extraordinary, vivid, visionary, kinetic field of intention. It's just phenomenal. And then this really smart as a whip piece called Can We Talk About This by Hitain Patel, who's a visual artist. Both of the pieces were actually commissioned by Stina and Pedro, the previous directors of Canduco, but they are a marvellous inheritance to be tending at the moment. And then I should say as well that we then go to Korea to premiere the work of a company called a choreographer called Unmi An, which is part of the cultural Olympiad around the Winter Olympics. So
what a year!
I've really got 3 hats. And actually, it's a very spiritual thing to kind of go like, right, I have to be here in the moment dealing with this, and then I take that hat off. And isn't that something that happens in Harry Potter where they have to put different hats? I've read it somewhere.
In this mystical world of dance, which has such an incredible spectrum, and what you're describing there, coming from your own experience, your own spectrum, and what audiences get to experience as a result of your creative output and your creative collaborations, just sound absolutely phenomenal. And I know that I'm really looking forward to seeing the work, and I just hope that as many people can get out and see the work of B Group and go and see Points of Echoes as it's touring across the rural regions, and the performances that you talked about there with Canduco in Sadler's Wells, and this incredible filmatic piece that I'd love you to be able to bring over and show in the UK.
I think it just was there was a broadcasters convention in Berlin, and that was last week, and I'm waiting to hear how things apparently it went down very well. So watch this space on that. Nothing would give me more joy to somehow get that presented in the UK, somehow screened somewhere in the UK.
Definitely. So Ben, my final question then is, do you have any words of advice for other emerging choreographers or aspiring artistic directors who perhaps would like to be inspired by your personal story and the work that you are creating and the companies you're leading? Any advice for emerging artists?
I guess the advice would gently shift depending on where the person was in their life. If it's a young person and they are finding particular joy in what they do, just know that the more you make yourself vulnerable to joy on an increased basis, that's the seedbed of passion. And I think that's where passion grows from. And in fact, saying that, it's worth remembering that at every single point in our lives, that's actually we need to retain our passion. And maybe that's it. Okay, I'm just going to say that. Let's just stick with joy and passion, because actually, as you get older, you realize that you move into a profession, and I would say an industry. I mean, people talk about show business, so there's a whole another level of things you need to consider about how you sustain your life as an artist. But I think unless you have retained your ability to be vulnerable to joy and to keep your passion buoyant, then it's harder. And that also means making sure that you're connected to a community, make sure that this is something else I'm learning at the moment. Choose contentment rather than validation. Just as long as you're content in what you're doing, that's actually ultimately what matters. That's the engine. You want to get down to the basic engine, the thing that's really driving you, because it is hard. It is really hard work at times. And community is important. Your passion is important. And your integrity. I think that's the thing that I would say. Yeah.
That is those words I think are so wonderful to end on. Joy, passion, community, personal contentment within an industry that is so fantastic. Thank you so much, Ben. Best of luck for the Points of Echoes tour, and check out it's touring until the 19th of March. Is that right?
It is. I'm going to be in Korea, sadly, over the last few shows, which I'm sort of really sad about. I'm excited about being in Korea. This is when you have to choose a hat.
Clashing diaries. Korea calls. You leave it to your three incredible artists who'll be able to continue the show in your absence until the 19th of March. Yeah. So for locations, dates and tickets, visit chinaplatetheatre.com, and there's a page for Point. It's called Point-Echoes, but just look for the page for Points of Echo and you can get your tickets there. And also, if you want to learn a little bit more about Ben, I will also plug Ben's personal website, just because the story is so very inspiring, particularly for the young male aspiring dancers who perhaps want to have some additional inspiration. Go visit benwright.info and follow on socials as well. Thanks so much, Ben.
Thank you so much. Lovely chatting to you. Have a great evening.
Thank you. All right.
Okay. Bye.
Don't forget to subscribe. We've got some incredible interviews coming up with principal ballerinas and renowned choreographers. We love dance and ballet, and we hope you'll love us. Join us on Facebook and Twitter.